Welcome to HerdBook, Farm Records Organized. I built this app because I got tired of running my farm out of sticky notes, spreadsheets, and the I know I'll remember that plan. What I wanted was one place where the day-to-day stuff lives. My goats, breeding dates, kidding records, milk logs, health events, pasture moves, and nutrition plans, with reminders to help me remember the fine details. I don't know about you, but I'm terrible about losing files and computer upgrades and crashes. Keeping all my stuff in the cloud is just good insurance. However carefully I collect a bunch of records, they really don't mean much unless I can go back and look at them in a meaningful way. When I want to figure out what's working and what isn't, I want a quick but accurate assessment. That's tough to do on a spreadsheet and nearly impossible on scraps of paper. So this is my attempt at a farm command center for farmers, so their records stay clean, the plans stay realistic, and nothing important gets lost in the chaos. And if it keeps my farm tighter, calmer, and healthier, my hope is it can do the same for other farms too. When you have subscribed to the app, you will receive a welcome email that looks something like this. Click on the Login Now button in the email to go to the initial login page, where you will enter your email, the one you subscribed with, and the temporary password from the email. If the Login Now link does not work, copy the URL in the bottom line and paste it into your browser. Clicking the link will take you to the initial login form. Enter your email and temporary password and click the Sign In button. This is the one-time initial registration page. To complete the registration and use the app, choose a new, secure password. Enter your first and last name and a farm name and answer at least 2 of the 3 security questions. All your information is private and will not be shared with anyone. Click Complete Setup to go to the farm dashboard. Along with the main navigation bar, the farm dashboard is the control hub of the app. From here, you can navigate to any of the tables for any of the application's many features. All the summary cards and underlying tables in this dashboard are empty because this user has not entered any data yet. We'll go over how to do that in upcoming chapters, but to get an idea of some of the capabilities of the app, you can use the sample dataset we created. With the sample dataset opened, you can view tables, graphs, and dashboards and practice record entry. Note that any entries will be temporary and may be viewed by others using the sample data. Please don't enter any data in sample mode that you want to keep or don't want others to see. To activate and use the sample data, click Users in the main navigation bar and click Account Settings. At the top of the screen, in the section titled Demo Mode, click the slide button from your farm name to Sample. You will always know that you are using sample data from the sample badge in the main nav bar. This badge will disappear when you turn off sample data, and a notification will pop up briefly. The first thing you will want to do is set up your herd. If you're using sample data, a basic herd is already set up for you. Feel free to play around with adding goats and goat groups until you're comfortable with the process. We'll go through these steps one by one, but if you want to dive right in, do it with the sample dataset. When ready to add your real herd, start by adding goats. To add a goat to your herd, click Goats in the main navigation bar and click Add Goat in the drop-down menu. This will open the goat form. There are only 3 required fields to add a goat to your herd: the nickname, the date of birth, and the gender. Note that required fields are highlighted in red. Clicking Save before these fields are completed results in a pop-up warning, and the form will not save. Although many of the fields in the goat form are optional, several bear mention because they carry forward to other features in the app. The life phase is automatically calculated from the gender and date of birth fields, and later automatically updated from breeding, kidding, and lactation records. There may be instances in which breeding and lactation records are unknown or unavailable. For example, if you purchase a bred doe or doe in milk. In those cases, it is possible to override the calculated life phase by, for example, setting it to pregnancy early. Please be aware that this manual override will take precedence over calculated values until you edit the goat and either change the value back to automatic or set another value manually. Being able to save and view images of your goats is a great option, and HerdBook has this capability. Because the app is entirely internet-based, images must be saved and accessed via an online image service. We've chosen cloudinary.com because of its ample free data allowance and ease of use. To use images in HerdBook, you must first set up a Cloudinary account and enter the required fields in the HerdBook account settings. Cloudinary account setup is easy and free. If you need help with entering the needed fields in account settings, please contact the app administrator. Once your herd is built, go to Herd Roster by clicking Goats in the main navigation bar, then click Manage Goats in the drop-down menu. The table displays all recorded fields for your goats and includes extensive filters so that you can really drill down to specifics. For example, to see all adult bucks that you own that are available for breeding, select Buck in the Gender field, Owned in the Disposition field, and Adult Buck Breeding in the Life Phase field. To clear these filters and see the entire table again, click Clear Filters. For a somewhat quicker drill down, all columns are sortable. For a more detailed view of an individual goat, click the Details button on the right side of that goat's table row. In addition to the information in the Manage Goats table, the Details panel includes a lot of additional information for an individual goat. If you've set up a Cloudinary account and uploaded images, these will appear as a gallery on the Details page. There is also tattoo details, a 4-generation pedigree, awards details, and a summary of breeding and health events. Goat Awards Management is a new feature this year. Here, you can add, edit, and view awards, including Show and Milk Star awards. To access the awards feature, click Goats in the main navigation bar and click Goat Awards in the drop-down menu. This opens the awards table where you can filter by goat, year, and category or add a new award. To add a new award, click the Add Award button in the filter bar, which will take you to the Add Award form. The required fields in this form are the goat's name, the award category, and the award type. There is one additional required field if certain award types are chosen. For example, if the award type is Star M, the qualification type for volume, butterfat, or protein must be entered. For placement in a show, the place must be entered. Which part of the app you use most will most likely depend on the season. We'll start with the breeding features to showcase how breeding-related events affect life phases that cascade through the rest of the app. If you've completely built your herd, you probably already have records for at least one doe and one buck of breeding age. You will need them to use the breeding features. The best way to use the breeding feature is to follow the usual flow of the breeding season, starting with a doe in heat, followed by a breeding, pregnancy test, prenatal care, kidding, and postnatal doe and kid care. Let's start with a heat record. To add a heat record, click Breeding in the main navigation bar, then Add Heat Record from the drop-down menu. The required fields in this form are the doe nickname and the heat date. If you don't know the exact date of the heat onset, guesses are fine and won't affect other records. All other fields in the heat record form are optional, but can be useful for planning future breeding cycles. The duration of the heat is especially helpful for planning artificial insemination, and the heat symptoms can let you know what to expect from this doe in the future. Click the Save button, and you will be taken to the heat records table, where you can review the entries and edit them if needed. Next, we'll add a mating record. There are a couple of pathways to do this depending on preference. The first is to click Breeding in the main navigation menu, and then Add Mating Record in the drop-down. This will take you to the mating record form, where the required fields are the sire, the dam, and the mating date. Another way to add a mating record is from the heat records table. This method has the advantage that it ties the mating record to the correct doe and heat record and pre-fills some of the required fields. To use this method, click Breeding in the main navigation bar. Click Heat Records to go to the Heat Records table, highlight the doe and heat, and click that row. This will take you to the edit form for that heat record. To create a mating record for this heat, Click Add Mating for this heat. The mating record form will now open with the doe, heat date, and mating date pre-populated. The date fields may be edited if needed. The sire is the only other required field in this form. The due date is automatically calculated based on a 150-day gestation period and will carry forward to kidding records. Select the buck and click Save. This will take you back to the mating records table where you can review the entry and edit it if needed. This is probably a good time to point out that all the tables in the app include clickable rows that open an edit form for that record. Hover over the row and click it to open the form and edit any entries that you want to change. One other thing to note on the mating records table is the EGA, or estimated gestational age. This is automatically calculated from the breeding date. It will be blank until a positive pregnancy test is entered, and blank again after kidding. This helps keep the breeding calendar from getting cluttered with unsuccessful breedings. So far in the breeding cascade, we've entered a heat record and a mating record, and now it's time to record a pregnancy test. Entering pregnancy tests is important because many of the advanced features of the app, such as the nutrition feature, use this information in calculations. Add a pregnancy test in one of two ways. The first way is to go to the pregnancy test table by clicking Breeding in the main navigation bar and clicking Pregnancy Tests in the menu. The advantage of using the table is the ability to see tests that have already been done, so you don't enter duplicate data. Click the Add Pregnancy Test button to go to the form. The other method to add a pregnancy test is to go directly to the form by clicking Breeding in the main navigation bar, then Add Pregnancy Test in the menu. Both pathways open the same simple form. Click the Select Doe dropdown. Only does with recent matings will be listed in the select. Click the doe and the mating for which you wish to record a pregnancy test. I usually do at least 2 pregnancy tests, one at 45 days post-breeding and one 2 to 3 weeks later as confirmation. The dates default to those values, but can be edited to record the actual date of the test. Edit the date as needed. Select the method of the test from the dropdown: blood, ultrasound, milk, or other. The other method is included for those instances when you know the doe is pregnant but didn't actually do a formal test. For example, she missed a heat and just looks pregnant. Record the result of the test. For the purposes of the advanced features of the app, an inconclusive result is the same as a negative result, does not record the doe as pregnant, and is essentially for record keeping only. The objective is to treat only those does with a confirmed pregnancy as pregnant. Click Save. This will take you to the Pregnancy Test Records table, where you can confirm the entries and edit as needed by clicking the row of the record. If all goes well, the next event in any breeding season is kidding. Adding a kidding record is similar to adding a mating record in that it can be done directly through the main menu. However, the best way to do it is via the specific mating record. This makes sure that kids are assigned to the right sire and avoids input errors such as in the date. To add a kidding record for a specific mating, click on that mating in the mating records table. This opens the edit form for that mating. At the top of the page, click the Add Kidding Record button to go to the kidding record form. The required fields, including the sire, the dam, and the kidding date, are all pre-filled. The date may be edited to reflect the actual kidding date. It is not necessary to enter the kid numbers or names at this point, but I find it helps me remember them when multiple things are happening at once. If you do want to enter the kids from this kidding, enter the number of each gender. The number of stillborn is for record keeping only and does not affect any other features of the app. The total live birth field is calculated from the gender numbers and cannot be edited. For each kid of each gender added in the number field, a line will be created to enter a kid nickname. The nickname is required, but can be a placeholder or temporary name that can be edited at a later date. The weight field is optional. Click Save to save the record, which will take you to the kidding records table to check and edit entries if needed. The best way to add kids is through the kidding record, because it automatically assigns the kids to the correct dam, sire, and mating record. However, it is possible to add kids outside of the kidding record. To add a kid without a kidding record, click Breeding in the main navigation bar and Add Kid in the drop-down menu. If we navigate to the Manage Goats table, you will notice that the new kids, Buck 1 and Doe 1, have not yet been added to the herd. This is intentional, as their ultimate disposition is not yet known. We'll cover how to make this disposition in a later chapter. For now, kids and their information can be viewed by clicking Breeding in the main navigation bar, then Kids in the drop-down menu. The Kids table is also where to go to edit the temporary nickname or any of the other fields that were created with the kidding. Click on the row for that kid, edit those fields, and click Save. There are many more fields that can be created when a kid is retained and transferred to the herd. By the time the kids are weaned, I've pretty much made my decision about which to retain and which to sell. Kid disposition is done via the Kids table and the Edit Kid form. To access the Edit form, hover over the row for the kid and click it. Moonchild has been an outstanding doe as a second freshener, and I'm going to retain all her kids this year. In the Edit Kid form, in the Disposition section, click the Retain Radio button and click Save. Click Confirm and Retain, and note that Dandy is no longer part of the kids roster. She has been transferred over to your herd and can be found on the Manage Goats table. The sale of a kid may also be recorded via the Disposition section of the Edit Kid form. In this case, clicking the Sell Radio button pulls up a sales record form. All fields in the form are required to save the record. Clicking the Review and Confirm button creates a bill of sale that can be printed for the buyer or saved to PDF for your records. Click the Confirm button to record the sale. This will remove the kid from the Kids table, but add it to the Manage Goats table with a disposition of Sold. If at some point you decide you no longer want to keep records of sold kids, kid records may be deleted by clicking on the row and clicking Delete on the Edit form. Selecting a disposition of Died pulls up the Death form. Only the date is required. Saving and confirming the record removes the kid from the Kids table, but adds it to the Goat table with a status of Died. Note that the Edit Goat form also includes a disposition section. We won't go through this in detail because it behaves exactly like kid disposition, except that there is no option to retain a goat that is already in your herd. This is my favorite time of year, when there are a bunch of fluffy, happy, bouncy, hopefully healthy tiny kids running around the kidding barn. Unfortunately, the work doesn't stop there, and there are several things to do to keep those kids and their dams happy and healthy. I keep track of these chores on the breeding calendar. When breeding events are recorded, several predictive events are added to the calendar. For example, when a heat record is added, the next predicted heat is added to the breeding calendar. To open the breeding calendar, click Breeding in the navigation bar, then Breeding Calendar. Then, when a mating record is added, the predicted kidding is added, as well as to-do events like pregnancy checks and prenatal vaccinations. Note that to-dos include a checkbox to mark them as done when they're completed. Any of the events can be clicked to open the source of the reminder. The breeding calendar has extensive filters to allow you to drill down on specific breeding events and tasks. For example, to figure out when a certain doe is likely to kid, click her name in the doe dropdown, click the Clear Types button, and click the Predicted Kidding checkbox. To view the entire calendar again, just click Clear Filters. One big advantage of an electronic record is that it doesn't waste paper or create a bunch of paper clutter. My barn gets messy enough as it is, and notebooks seem to mysteriously disappear at the worst possible time. However, there are a couple of cases where it's important to have instant access to information when an electronic device may not be available. For me, the breeding calendar is one of those. Printing the calendar is simple. Just click Print Calendar, click Print, select your printer, or save to PDF, and that should do it. Ideal nutrition is important at any stage of life, but especially vital for newborn and very young kids. The best, and really only reliable, way to know if a kid is getting enough milk is to weigh it. I weigh kids at least once per day and twice if I have cause for concern. HerdBook makes it easy to record, track, and evaluate kid growth with the Kid Weights feature. In most cases, I don't have time to weigh kids immediately after birth. Often there are more kids to come or the dam needs my attention for some reason. There's usually plenty of time for data entry after the kids are all dried off and nursing. At that point, I start taking pictures, grab the scale, and start entering kids with their birth weights. If for some reason I forget the weight, I can always go back and enter it later. I won't go through entering a new kid as we covered that in an earlier chapter. We'll just enter a weight for a kid that already has a record but without a weight. To go back and enter a birth weight, go to the Kids table by clicking Breeding, then Kids from the drop-down menu. This is probably a good time to mention the weight unit toggle, which is available on all pages and forms with weight elements. You can select either metric units or US. The unit selection will pass through to the related forms. For convenience, many forms also include their own units toggle. Let's enter a birth weight for Moonchild's doeling, Doe 1. First of all, she needs a better name, so let's enter that here too. I wasn't able to enter a birth weight for Moonbaby, so I'll correct that first. Birth weights are important because many of the growth milestones and charts key off of that datum point. Weights may be entered in pounds or kilograms. The app will make conversions when and where necessary. Click Save to save the record and go back to the Kids table to ensure that the weight was entered correctly. To edit the weight, click on that row to go back to the entry form. Daily recording of kid weights is slightly different than recording the birth weight. To enter a new kid weight after the birth weight has been recorded, click Breeding in the main navigation bar and click Add Kid Weight in the drop-down menu. Click the kid name in the Select drop-down. We'll stick with Moonbaby for now. The date and time will pre-fill with now, but can be edited at will. The weight is required and can be entered in pounds or kilograms. The dam or bottle feeding field is optional, but I like to keep track of it for my own records. Click Save to return to the Kid Weights table and click the row to edit your entry if needed. The Kid Weights dashboard demonstrates the power of careful data collection with comparison growth charts and milestone tables. To view the Kid Weight dashboard, click Breeding in the main navigation bar, then click Kid Dashboard in the drop-down menu. Here you can see growth charts for all kids or select just one or two that you might be worried about. The Period Select provides more or less granular detail. The Average Daily Gain chart gives a high-level view with average daily gains up to the most recently obtained weight. The benchmark table shows whether kids are meeting specific growth milestones. The milestones are calculated from breed-specific growth rates. If no breed is set for the kid, the table uses the dam's breed as a fallback. If no breed is set for either the kid or the dam, the milestone columns will be blank. Breed values can be set by editing the kid from the Kids table. If you have a dairy herd like I do, then you know that tracking milk production and quality is the first step towards managing a successful operation. The success of any breeding program depends, in large part, on knowing who the best and worst performers are, who to keep, and who to cull. Changes in nutrition can have a profound effect on production. but guessing about what works and what doesn't is rarely successful. The milk feature of the app allows tracking of per-animal production, as well as dairy herd improvement testing and bacterial surveillance programs. We'll start by recording daily milk production. To record a milk weight record for a doe, she must have a status of lactating. This status is assigned automatically when a kidding record is created. There may be cases where it's not possible to enter a kidding record. In those instances, it is possible to change lactation status by accessing the edit form from the Manage Goats table. This is also the method to dry off a doe when the time comes. To change the lactation status, go to the Manage Goats table and select the doe to be changed. Here, Billy Joe has a lactating status of no and a life phase setting of adult dry doe. The life phase setting is primarily important for nutrition calculations. It will change automatically when the lactating status is set. Click on the highlighted row. This will take you to the Edit Goat page for Billy Joe. Scroll down to the Lactation and Life Phase section and click Start Lactation. If you know the kidding date, enter it here. An approximation is fine. The date will default to today if left unchanged. Click the Start Lactation button, which will take you back to the Manage Goats table to ensure that the change was made correctly. These fields may be edited at any time. Here you can see that the lactating status for Betty Joe is now set to yes, and her life phase is lactation late. To enter a milk record, click Milk in the main navigation bar and click Add Milk Entry in the drop-down menu. The milk form is a little different than other forms in the app because it conforms to the reporting requirements for most dairy herd improvement associations. All fields other than the notes field are required, and milk weights may only be entered in pounds and tenths. That way, everything is ready to transfer to the DHI report. The Marcus Test Day checkbox is for your records only and is not required. Only does and milk will appear in the Doe Select dropdown. If the doe you're looking for is not listed, check the Manage Goats table to ensure that her lactating status is set to yes. Complete the other required fields and click Submit Record and confirm your entries to go back to the milk entry form. Here you can enter another record or go back to the milk records table for review. The milk records table is a good place to review daily entries, and all entries may be edited from the table. However, the data really comes together and becomes useful in the milk dashboard. In the milk dashboard, the milk production chart display can be filtered by year, time period, and by individual doe. The yearly milk production chart is a stacked bar chart that can help identify the highest and lowest producing members of the herd. It can be filtered by year and by doe. Yearly milk production by goat shows a tabular comparison year by year. Milk testing turns "she seems to be milking well" into hard data. In addition to an official recording of volume production, milk testing provides butterfat and protein percentages and the somatic cell count that can be an early warning sign of mastitis. Milk testing through a Dairy Herd Improvement Association is also the basis for performance evaluations and awards, Milk Star Awards, given by many dairy registries. To enter the results of a milk test, either click the Add Milk Test button on the Milk Test table or click Milk in the main navigation bar, then Add Milk Test in the drop-down menu. Only does and milk will appear in the Doe Select drop-down. The DHI index is required by the testing lab and the CDCB and must be unique within your herd. You may assign any value that you like, but it must be unique for that doe. If the doe that you select already has an assigned index, it will automatically populate that field. If the doe does not have an assigned index, then a form will pop up to allow you to assign one. For simplicity, I use sequential numbers for indexes, and automatic assignment will use the next number in sequence. If your farm uses a different schema, enter the next index in the custom box. The index may be any string of letters and numbers, but must be unique for that doe on your farm. In case all you want to do is keep a record of when a test was done, only the doe, name, index, and date fields are required. This might be the case when you submit a dry test record or submit a test without samples. The remainder of the fields are optional. The lactation number is calculated from lactation records, but can be edited. Fill in any optional fields desired and click Create to navigate to the milk records table. Here you can review the entry and edit as needed. As with the milk records dashboard, the milk test table provides a summary of milk test data collected. Records can be filtered by doe and by date range. The summary section displays averages over the time period selected. Graphs are always useful for providing a visual overview of what's going on in the herd. I pay particular attention to the somatic cell score as it can give an early warning for mastitis. Here I've selected a single doe in order to display the trend in her somatic cell score versus the herd as a whole. Regular bacterial screening is another important part of our quality assurance program. We do weekly plate counts for total aerobic bacteria, coliforms, and E. coli. Any test that falls outside of benchmarks set by the Raw Milk Institute sparks a close examination of sanitation, collection, and storage practices. Upward trends in counts are also watched closely. To record the results of a bacterial test, either click the Add Test button on the Bacterial Test table or click Milk on the main navigation bar, then add bacterial entry from the drop-down menu. The bacterial test form is one of the simplest in the app. The date pre-fills with today, but may be edited if needed. The count fields must be integers greater than or equal to 0 without decimals. Individual bacterial tests may be viewed and edited in the bacterial test table. To view the table, click Milk in the main navbar and click Bacterial Test Table in the drop-down menu. Rotational grazing consists of moving livestock through multiple paddocks instead of grazing one area continuously. It offers clear benefits for pasture health, animal performance, and farm economics, especially for goats and other small ruminants. It is a critical piece of our parasite prevention program. Keeping grazing records starts with the interactive farm map. Here you can draw pastures and paddocks, view occupancy, and link to records and summaries. It is possible to find your farm by adjusting the zoom and panning to your location, but it's best to start by setting your location. To set your location, click the Set Center button to go to the Account Settings Demographics section where you can enter your location. The map may be centered on a zip code or a more precise location using latitude and longitude coordinates. I get my coordinates from Google Earth, but just about any mapping program will do this. Be sure to copy only the numbers without the degrees symbol. Also, be sure to use the minus sign for the longitude if you're in the Western Hemisphere. Coordinates should look like this, with a comma between and a negative sign before the longitude for the Western Hemisphere. If the degrees symbol pasted with the numbers, be sure to delete it. The app will ignore any decimals after 6, but it's okay to put them in. To ensure that the coordinates entered are correctly formatted and within the accepted range, somewhere on Earth, click the Validate button. If the coordinates are in error, a warning banner will pop up. Correct the error and click Validate again. Click the Save Demographics button and navigate back to the map by clicking Grazing in the main navigation bar and then Interactive Map in the drop-down menu. You must have at least one goat group, one pasture, and one paddock to use the grazing feature. 2 paddocks are required to move goats from one paddock to another. You may have already created a goat group when building your herd, which is fine. We'll walk through that, just in case. Creating a goat group is really easy once you have some goats in your herd records. To add a goat group, click Goats in the main navigation bar and click Add Goat Group in the drop-down menu. The only required field in the goat group form is the name. This can be any string of characters or numbers. I recommend choosing something descriptive that will be easy to use on a daily basis. Only goats who are not already assigned to a group will appear in the checkbox section. It is not possible to assign a goat to more than one group. Pick a memorable name for the group and assign any goats that will be members, and click Save Group. This will take you to the goat group table to review the entries and edit as needed. A group may also be deleted without deleting the members. Their records will persist throughout the app. Now that you have at least one goat group, you're ready to start using the Grazing feature. Go back to the map by clicking Grazing and then Interactive Map. Here, you will see several drawing tools for creating pastures and paddocks. Create a pasture first by clicking the Pasture button to enter pasture drawing mode. If you're lucky enough to have regularly shaped pastures, use the Rectangle tool to draw the pasture. The Rectangle tool is the easiest to use. Just click on one corner of the pasture, then roll the mouse down to the diagonal corner. Do not hold down the mouse key while rolling. If you make a mistake, click the Clear button and start over. When you're satisfied with the pasture boundaries, click Save to open the pasture form. Fill in the input fields. The acreage is calculated automatically by the app but can be overridden. For example, in North Pasture, there are 189 acres fenced but only 10 acres of cultivated pasture. The app will use the value that you enter for calculated fields, like the grazing density. Click the Save Pasture button. You will be taken back to the map, where you will see the newly created pasture with the label that you assigned. Pastures and paddocks are color-coded, and we'll discuss that further when creating paddocks. None of my paddocks conform to any recognizable geometric shape. That's okay, because the Polygon tool allows drawing of just about any sided shape imaginable. We'll use this tool to demonstrate drawing and adding a paddock. To draw your first paddock, first select the Paddock button to switch from pasture to paddock drawing mode. We could use the Rectangle tool to draw this paddock, but for demonstration purposes, we'll select the Polygon tool. The Polygon tool behaves a little differently than the Rectangle tool. To use it, select the first corner of the paddock and click each point along the paddock boundary. When the shape is complete to your satisfaction, click the first point to finish the paddock. This may take some practice, so if you make a mistake, click the Clear button and start over. The pasture and paddock boundaries are mostly a visual representation of your grazing areas. They don't have to be exact or precise, and the app is pretty forgiving in their use. As with adding a pasture, click Save to go to the paddock form, fill in the input fields, and adjust the acreage if desired. The only difference is that a paddock must be assigned to a pasture. We've only one pasture, so that should be easy. Click Save Paddock to go back to the map, where you will see the newly created paddock with its label. That's it. Create at least one more paddock, and you'll be able to fully utilize the Grazing feature. Our newly created paddocks are currently empty, so the next step is to fill them with goats. This can be approached in a couple of different ways, but we'll stay with the interactive map for now. To create a new paddock event, click the Add Event button. Because this is a new, empty paddock, goats are being assigned for the first time. Click the Event Mode Select and choose Initialize Group. The date field defaults to today, but can be edited if needed. Select the group that you want to place in the paddock. Select the paddock and add any notes if needed. Click Save Event to go back to the interactive map. Notice that the color of paddock A1 has changed to orange. This signifies that the paddock is occupied, whereas the one next to it is blue because it's empty. Roll the mouse cursor over the paddock label and click it. This brings up the Paddock Details panel that displays the paddock status and the current occupants. If you're using management-intensive grazing with frequent moves, you'll often need to move goats in groups from one paddock to another. This can get really confusing if you have multiple groups scattered across multiple pastures. The app can be an invaluable tool to keep track of all that. I've created a third paddock to demonstrate recording a paddock move event, but first wanted to show what happens when you attempt to move a group into a paddock that is already occupied. Because this is an occasional necessity, the app does allow this, but we'll ask for confirmation first to make sure it's not an error. Add a move event in the same way as an initialize event by clicking the Add Event button on the interactive map. In this case, I'll demonstrate the instance where a group is moved into a paddock that is already occupied. In the paddock event form, click the Event Mode select and choose Move to record a move event. Change the date if needed. In the Move Type select, choose Group. It is possible to move individual goats, but we'll stick with moving groups for now. The paddock that the group currently occupies will auto-populate the From Paddock field. Select the new paddock in the To Paddock field. For demo purposes, I'll select Paddock A2, which is already occupied. When I click the Save button and then Confirm, I get this pop-up warning telling me that the paddock is already occupied by the Sandman group. It offers me the opportunity to confirm the move or cancel in case it is an error. I'm going to cancel this for now because I don't want this buck group and doe group in the same paddock at this time. Clicking Cancel takes me back to the paddock event form where I'll change the To Paddock selection to an empty paddock. Click Record Event to go back to the interactive map. Here you can see that paddock A1 is now blue, indicating that it is empty, and A3 is orange, indicating that it is occupied. Clicking on the A3 label pulls up the paddock details slide-in. Pasture and paddock details are listed in their respective tables. To open the pasture table, click Grazing in the main nav bar and Pasture List in the dropdown. As with other tables in the app, hovering over a row and clicking it opens the edit form for that pasture. Open the paddock table in the same way by clicking Grazing in the nav bar and Paddock List in the dropdown. The paddock summary table is the go-to for day-to-day planning of rotational grazing. To go to the paddock event summary, click Grazing in the main navigation bar, then click Paddock Summary in the dropdown. Here I can see which paddocks have been occupied the longest, and which can go a few more days before a move becomes necessary. I try to move goats about every 4 days, and the Days On column provides a counter for that. I also try to let a paddock rest at least 60 days before moving stock back in. That's where the Days Off column comes in handy. The remainder of the columns are various objective measures of relative grazing impact. Along with an active grazing plan, activities such as seeding, fertilizing, mowing, and irrigating help keep pastures as healthy as possible and keep the weeds at bay. The Pasture Activities feature is the place to record all these. To add a pasture activity, click Grazing in the main navigation bar and click Add Pasture Activities in the dropdown. In the Add Pasture Activity form, the only required fields are the activity type and the date. All other fields are optional but useful because they carry forward to other features such as the materials inventory. For demonstration purposes, I've added crimson clover to the materials catalog and created a seeding event to use it. I'll go over how to add a material to the catalog in the next section, but wanted to make some additional points about the activity form. Although the pasture and paddock fields are optional, the acreage, amounts per acre, and cost fields are automatically calculated from them. Cost data will remain blank until these fields are completed. The weather data fields are really handy in evaluating the success of a pasture management program. This data downloads from a national weather database and is based on the zip code entered in that field above. The zip code field is optional, but weather data will be unavailable if it is not completed. Additional weather notes can augment the downloaded data. Next, if applicable, add a material to the activity. This can be accomplished by adding a material freeform by clicking the blank row button and filling in the fields. The amount and cost data are calculated from these inputs. For frequently or regularly used materials, there is the Custom Materials catalog. The catalog is unique to each farm's profile and is empty until materials are added. To add a material from the catalog, click the Add from Catalog button and select the material to add. I've added crimson clover to the catalog to demonstrate adding a material in this way. The fields for materials added from the catalog can all be edited. The total amount and cost values adjust automatically. The values in the main form also automatically adjust the cumulative total. There are 2 ways to add a new custom material to the materials catalog. From within the Add Pasture Activity form, click the New Material button to go to the Add Material form.
In the Add Material form, most of the fields are required because they carry forward to the Activity form and are required for the calculation. The required fields are highlighted in red, and attempting to save without completing them will pull up a warning message, and the form will not save. The source fields are optional, but I find them incredibly useful for finding materials and remembering how to use them year to year.
When finished adding materials for the activity, click the Save Activity button at the top of the form. This takes you back to the Pasture Activity table where you can review the entry and edit it if needed. The other way to add a new material is from the Materials catalog. To open the Materials catalog, click Grazing in the main navigation bar and Materials catalog in the drop-down menu. Then click New Material at the top of Table to open the new material form. After feed costs and labor costs, the costs for materials for growing and maintaining pasture are some of the largest expenses for a livestock farm. HerdBook keeps track of these with the Material Costs segment of the Grazing feature. To access the Material Costs table, click Grazing in the main navigation bar, then Material Costs in the drop-down. The Material Cost table uses data from manually entered purchases and material usage from activity records and summarizes them in the current year inventory and budget table. Those who are new to the app will probably need to add new materials to the catalog as a first step in using the Pasture Activity feature. The best time to do this is at the time of initial purchase when the invoice is handy before it gets lost in that stack of papers in the inbox. The new material form may be accessed from the Material Catalog page or directly from the main menu by clicking Grazing in the nav bar, then add New Material in the drop-down menu. As before, only the name and category are required to add a new material, but the cost and spread rate information are needed to use the Cost and Inventory feature. I can never seem to remember from where my materials are sourced, so I always make note of that information as well. Click the Save Material button to save the new material and go back to the Materials catalog, where you can review and edit the entry if needed.
I filled in the fields to add a new material and will add the purchase as well. To add a material purchase at the time of adding a new material, click the Add Initial Purchase Now checkbox at the bottom of the new material form. All the fields in the form are required. Click Save to go to the Materials catalog and edit the new entry if needed.
Review and edit the material purchase by navigating to the Material Costs page, highlighting, and then clicking the Purchase row. Any of the fields may be edited or the purchase deleted if desired. Deleting the purchase will remove it from the Cost and Inventory accounting. The current year inventory and budget summarizes purchases and usage year to date. Here you can see the amounts purchased and used and the amount remaining on hand. You can also set an annual budget and see how you're doing in maintaining costs so far. There are many factors that determine the success or failure of any dairy farm. Ideal nutrition is the most vital. One of the primary motivations for building this app was the long, unsuccessful search for a nutrition calculator that would help me with feeding my goats. I just could not find anything that was, at the same time, easy to use, accurate, customizable, and based on the most recent science on nutrition for small ruminants. The nutrition calculator pulls information from several different areas in the database, and accurate calculation depends on data entered in those previous features. For example, all goats must have a reasonably accurate weight and date of birth to calculate its nutrient requirements and put together a feed plan. For pregnant and lactating does, their life phase must be entered to determine pregnancy and lactation status. For demonstration, I've added an adult doe to the herd without recording her life phase. Note the incomplete flag in her card on the Goat Nutrition selector. Selecting Mandy for nutrition calculation pulls up a warning that details which parameters are missing from her profile. Click the Edit link to go to the Goat List table, then hover over Mandy's row and click it to edit her profile. Her weight was missing, so we'll enter it now. Click Save Changes to update her profile, click Nutrition in main nav bar, and Nutrition Calculator in the dropdown. Now the incomplete flag has been removed and we can select her for the ration builder. For simplicity and for demonstration, we'll use individual goats to start the ration builder. Click the checkbox next to each goat's name. I'll choose goats from different life phases for the demo. Make sure that the head count and weight totals are as expected. If you left somebody out or something doesn't look right, click Clear to start over. If it all looks good, click the Compute Requirements button to open the ration builder. The herd nutrition summary shows total requirements for all the goats selected, whether individually or as part of a group or entire herd. The per goat daily requirements table demonstrates the significant differences in nutrient requirements for each of the different life phases. For example, a lactating doe has substantially greater energy and protein requirements than a pregnant doe or a buck. Mineral and vitamin requirements vary as well. Next, select the feed components that make up the daily ration. For new users, the feed stuff selects will be empty. The app offers two sources for feed components: custom feeds that you add, or an imported feed database provided by Langston University, a recognized authority in small ruminant nutrition. I highly recommend using the imported database because its feed components include all the values required to make the calculation. The database becomes part of your individual profile and can be edited at will. I'll go over adding a custom feed in a future section. For now, we'll use the imported database. To import the feed database, click Nutrition in the main navigation bar and click Feed Catalog in the dropdown. Click the Import Feed Catalog button at the top and confirm the import. This is the feed catalog, including both the imported feeds as well as a couple of custom feeds I've added. To edit any feed in the catalog, roll over the row and click it to pull up the edit form. To add a custom feed, click the Add Custom Feed button in the upper right corner of the feed table. The required fields in the Add Feed form are the name, the percent dry matter, crude protein, the total digestible nutrition, the calcium, and the phosphorus. These are the minimum fields required to perform the nutrient requirements calculations. The feed name must be unique. Use of a duplicate feed name will generate a warning and the record will not save. Any letter or number qualifier may be used to create a unique name. For example, each year I have hay analyzed and added to the catalog with a year qualifier in the name. That way, if I have any left over from the previous year, I can still use it and switch to the new hay when the old is gone. Click Create Feed to go back to the feed catalog. All the table columns are sortable, and the table can be searched by free text or filtered by category. The feed catalog is unique to your farm and can be edited as needed. Records may be changed or deleted without affecting the catalog for other farms. To delete a feed record, hover over the record and click it to open the edit form. Here, I've done a text search for the 2025 hay and will delete it because it has all been used. Using the ration builder is an iterative process in which a rough guess is made about the amount needed of each of the feed components available. The app then calculates the percent of requirement met by the chosen components, and then those are dialed up or down to more closely meet requirements. It's a lot harder to say than it is to do. I'll go through the series of steps in the video to give an idea of how to do it. After that, there's nothing wrong with a little trial and error. As a point of reference, I target energy shown as in EL. Depending on feed components, this often ends up with greater than 100% of protein. This target is based on several authoritative sources, but you're welcome to target any component you like based on your own practices. At the time of year that I'm recording this tutorial, the feed components available to me are alpha hay, a fermented chaffed alfalfa product, first cutting Timothy hay, and various whole grains. Corn is almost always available and inexpensive, so I'll use that for the demo. From previous experience, I know about the right amounts of each of these components for a group of this size and makeup, so I'll start in the ballpark to save time. The ballpark I chose is pretty close, but I can dial the relative amounts to make it close to perfect. Both protein and energy are very close to 100%, so I'll be satisfied with this. The calcium is a bit below requirements, but the calcium to phosphorus ratio is on target, and I'll make up the difference with a free choice mineral. Now that the feed components are dialed in, I need to put the feed plan into a usable format. This is one of those cases where I really appreciate having a printed version of the plan. I only have to adjust the plan periodically, as the situation on the farm changes, so I'm not wasting too much paper. The nutrition plan is summarized in the barn sheet. To build the barn sheet, scroll to the bottom and click the Add to Barn Sheet button. The barn sheet is cumulative, so you can add individual plans for different goats and goat groups as needed. The barn sheet is accessed by the Show Summary button at the top of the page. Note the numeral 1 on the button, indicating that there is one nutrition plan included in the barn sheet. This will increase by 1 with each plan added. Click the Show Summary button to open a preview of the barn sheet. Here, you can save the sheet to PDF or print to paper. I feed supplemental vitamins and minerals free choice, but I still like to ensure that I'm putting enough out there and that I'm not wasting it. For this calculation, I take advantage of the periods select in the app to tell me how much mineral to put out for the herd each week. As with feed, mineral supplements can be calculated for goat groups or individual goats, but because I just put enough in a bucket for the entire herd and distribute it more or less evenly on a per-goat basis, I calculate minerals for the entire herd. At the end of the week, I just see how much is left and adjust accordingly. My goal is to make sure that nobody runs out, but I don't end up wasting a significant amount. Here, I select the entire herd box, make sure that weekly is selected in the period select, and click Compute to open the Ration Builder. The Ration Builder works pretty much the same for minerals as it does for feed, except that now the target will be different. First, I remove the extra rows because I'm only putting out one combination vitamin and mineral supplement. For those who feed individual minerals, these rows may be needed. Because goats are so susceptible to copper deficiency, and because our soil is deficient in copper, I use copper as the target mineral. If your soils have sufficient copper, but are deficient in selenium, for example, then selenium would be a reasonable target. Most high-quality goat mineral supplements will be adequate to cover deficiencies when offered free choice. As before, I've started with a ballpark that I think will cover the herd for copper. Note that I've changed the units to ounces for ease of measurement. Pounds, grams, or kilograms may be selected based on the situation. In this case, my ballpark turns out to be too low, so I dial the amount upwards to reach near 100% of my target. I don't mind going a little over with minerals because I know there will be some wastage. I've added the mineral plan for the entire herd and a feed plan for the Moonchild group to the barn sheet to show how the barn sheet summarizes different plans but tabulates them separately. The barn sheet can be simple or complex depending on the needs of the individual farm. Before leaving the nutrition planner, it's necessary to point out that, although the calculations are as precise as possible and based on the current science available at this time, the nutrition calculator is an approximation. It should be seen as a starting point for herd nutrition and is not a substitute for careful monitoring of goat health and body condition. With that in mind, let's move on to the herd health feature. The big things like breeding, milking, grazing, and feeding always seem to be at the forefront of my farm management, and it's the little day-to-day and week-to-week tasks like hoof trimming, vaccinations, and parasite checks that seem easy to forget. To keep from falling behind on these small but important chores, I use the health feature in HerdBook. To add a health event to the calendar, click the Add Event button at the top of the table to open the Add Event form. As with the nutrition feature, the health feature offers a catalog of templates for common events. It's a little different from the feed catalog in that it's shared by all users. The templates with the lock in the first column cannot be individually edited. It is possible to add your own custom templates, and I'll go over that in the next segment. For demonstration purposes, I'll add an annual CDT vaccination. All the fields in the event form can be individually entered, but the advantage of using a template is that many of the details are pre-filled. In the case of the CDT vaccination, the frequency, route, and dose fields are all pre-populated. This really helps with remembering those important details that are easily forgotten after the months go by. The ability to schedule recurring events is a powerful tool in the health feature. For example, hoof trimming is one of those recurrent events that I frequently let get away from me. Scheduling repeat events in the calendar helps me keep track of when and if I did them and for whom. Intervals of weeks, months, or years are available, and up to 12 events can be scheduled at a time. It's also possible to set an end date. The next step is to select the goats for the event. Select individual goats or the entire herd. Finally, fill in any missing details, like equipment needed, and click the Save button to go back to the Health Events table where entries can be viewed and edited if needed. On the Health Event table, notice the 3 repeating hoof trim events just added. I finally got caught up enough to get the first one done today and would like to check it off on the calendar. To do this, hover over the row and click it to bring up the Edit form. Here I can mark the chore as done, edit any details, and add notes as needed. When the Save button is checked, an alert pops up offering the choice of completing a single event or all events. I've only completed the one event, so I'm going to click the Single Event button to only check off one of them. As mentioned earlier, the shared template catalog items cannot be edited, but it is possible to add a custom template if desired. To add a new custom template, click Health in the main navigation bar, then Health Event Templates in the drop-down menu. Click the Add Event button in the upper right of the table. This pulls up the Health Event form. Only the template name and type fields are required, but the real benefit of a template is that it saves time by pre-filling as many fields as possible. The details fields are context-specific. For example, selecting the vaccination type pulls up details specific to vaccinations, whereas selecting the medication type pulls up medication-related fields. For this tutorial, I'll add a template for copper oxide wire particles, which I use to suppress gastrointestinal worms during the warm season. I've selected the medication type, which pulls up fields for dose, schedule, and side effects appropriate to any medication. Click Save to save the record and return to the template table to review the new template. Note that there is no lock icon next to the custom template, so it can be edited. Click on the row to pull up the Edit Template form. Both the breeding calendar and the herd health calendar have the capability to send reminder emails. The processes are very similar, so I'll cover both of them here. Many don't like their email inbox cluttered with daily emails, so the default setting for reminder emails is opt-out. We'll start by changing this option to opt-in. To change the email reminder option, click Users in the main navigation bar and click Account Settings in the drop-down. Scroll down to the Email Preferences part of the Demographics section and check or uncheck the checkboxes for email reminders. The breeding and health event reminders can be set separately. Be sure to click the Save Demographics button before navigating away from the page, or the settings will not save. In the breeding calendar or the health events table, to set the email options, click the Email Settings button near the top right of the page. If you previously opted out of email reminders, the email options will be blurred out. To demonstrate this, I've turned off email reminders for the breeding calendar. To change the setting to opt-in, click the link in the reminder at the top to go to the email settings, click the checkbox to opt-in, then click the Save Demographics button. The email reminder options include a window that determines how far in advance emails should be sent. This can vary by season, and this setting can be changed at any time. There is also the option to select some or all of the reminder types. Please note that selecting no reminder types will not turn off daily emails. Emails will still be sent with an empty reminder list. Click the Save button and confirm the settings to go back to the calendar. Along with the materials, feed, and health events catalogs, there is also a catalog for medications that may be used along with the herd health events. The catalog is for convenience only and is not a substitute for advice from your veterinarian, nor is it a substitute for reading the label and being familiar with the indications, dosing, and side effects. Any medication may be ineffective or harmful if used improperly. To view the catalog, click Health in the main navigation bar and Medication Catalog in the drop-down menu. Please contact app administrators to add a medication or report errors in the table. The medication table provides a summary of commonly used medications for small ruminants. Very few medications are FDA approved specifically for goat use and require the approval of a veterinarian familiar with your animals. This is indicated in the column headed VCPR. The list of medications that require veterinarian supervision is expanding. Please check all product labels before using for your goats. To see additional details for many of the medications in the list, hover over that row and click it. To use the medication catalog, from the Health Events table, click the Add Event button. In the Type drop-down, click Medication and the medication form opens at the bottom of the page. Click the Pick from Catalog button and scroll down to find the medication. The catalog is searchable, so you don't need to scroll through the whole list. For example, typing copper will pull up all medications with copper in the title. For weight-based medications, the app provides a dosing calculator. To see individual doses for the goats selected for the event, click the medication needed. Medication concentrations may vary, so doses are listed in milligrams and must be converted to milliliters when appropriate. Again, please cross-check all doses with your vet or the package label before administration. Doses in the table may be rounded or changed. Once satisfied with the doses, click the Use this medication button to return to the Health Events table where you can review or edit the entry. At the end of the day, HerdBook isn't about screens or software, it's about taking better care of our animals and our land. It's a place to keep the details straight, so you can spend less time chasing paperwork and more time doing the work that matters. If it helps you feel a little more organized, a little more confident, and a little more at ease on the farm, then it's doing exactly what I hoped it would.